What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Backup Fantasy Sports. Today is Thursday, July 21st. My name is Ewan, and today we will be talking about Fantasy Premier League and emptying the preseason notebook. I'm going to go through all 20 teams in hopefully 45 minutes and talk about how their preseasons are going and any burning questions. So let's get right to it. With Arsenal, they've played 3 preseason games so far. Their 4th game is tonight versus Orlando City. Gabriel Jesus has come into the side and been on fire with 3 goals and 1 assist in 2 games. He's going to be paired up front with Eddie Nketiah at £7 million in the game. He's had 3 goals, 4 assists himself in 3 games, but all 3 of his goals came before Jesus arrived. Looking at Arsenal, they have some great fixtures to start the year. Game weeks 1 through 5 are Crystal Palace, Leicester at home, Bournemouth, Fulham, and Villa both at home there. I feel like it's adequate enough to have Jesus or Saka as Arsenal coverage, although I believe in my draft right now, I have both of them because very excited about what Arsenal can do this year. They took a big step forward last year, and I think the signings of Zinchenko and Gabriel Jesus from Man City should only propel them forward. Next up is Aston Villa. They've played 3 games. They've collected the W in all 3 as well. Leon Bailey in midfield at $5 million has come on as an early preseason alternative to the very popular Pedro Neto from Wolves. He's got a goal and assist so far, so he's definitely someone to keep an eye on as the preseason continues. Matty Cash and Luca Dean come in at £5 million in the game, the attacking wingbacks in Steven Gerrard's Aston Villa system. They are rumored to be getting more attacking freedom this season, with Gerrard trying to shore up the middle of that defense, make it more secure, stop leaking goals. So if Cash and Dean are getting even more forward than they were in like the 3 quarters of a season that they did last year under Stevie G, they could be very interesting options. I actually have Matty Cash in several drafts. I'm not sure if he's in the one I currently have, but I'll talk about that at the end of this. Ollie Watkins also came through last night with a goal and an assist for Aston Villa, or not last night, in their 3 games. He is an interesting option at $7.5 million because he is a possible pivot from Gabriel Jesus with the early fixtures if you really, really feel like you need that extra $0.5 million. Aston Villa open up with Bournemouth on the road, Everton at home, Crystal Palace on the road. So those are... Crystal Palace is a challenging one, possibly, but I would still feel okay going with Watkins over Jesus if you really need that extra 0.5 to go somewhere else in your team, as he was great towards the end of last season. I know he had a ton of chances and it took him a while to get on the score sheet when those chances were falling, but this could be the year that Watkins takes a huge step. Next up is Bournemouth, one of the newly promoted sides. They've only had 2 games so far, but Dominic Solanke, the forward at £6 million, has 2 goals. Last week on FPL Wire podcast, they had Luke, who is at FPL Irons on Twitter, as he was discussing the 3 promoted teams from the championship this year, and he was much more intrigued by Alexander Mitrovic at Fulham than Solanke, because he just thinks that Bournemouth are more than likely going to be one of the 3 teams. He thinks Bournemouth is the most likely team to go straight back down out of Fulham, Nottingham Forest, and Bournemouth. But he said because he is so talismanic, so important to that side, that he could still bag a 15 goal and assists season with the newly promoted side. Other than that, what I'm doing this year is good players from good teams, and if there's exciting options that come along, I can adjust and move on to those guys later on, but I don't want to start the season with a Bournemouth, Fulham, Nottingham Forest guys, although I do have a couple of them on my bench. And I just don't want to be stuck where I'm like, I have to play my early season wild card because this is a disaster. Next up is Brentford as we just move down the alphabet here. They've played 3 games. Brian Mbeumo was moved from a midfielder to a forward this season. He comes in at £6 million. He's already got 2 goals. One of them is from a penalty, but that was with Ivan Toney off the field. Speaking of Toney, he's 7.5 million. He could also be, after game week 2, so game week 3 through 6, he has Fulham, Everton, Crystal Palace, and Leeds. So if you're looking to avoid Gabriel Jesus altogether in that massive ownership, you could go Ollie Watkins for those first 2 games against Bournemouth and Everton, and then go straight over to Ivan Toney, who would then have Fulham, Everton, Crystal Palace, and Leeds. You don't really want to lock in transfers, but it's just an interesting look through the first 6 game weeks. The thing that worries me about Toney, though, is he was so strong at the end of the season in the 21-22 year, but that was all with Christian Eriksen in the side. And now Eriksen is over playing for the Red Devils at Old Trafford. So it's going to be interesting to see if he can carry over that performance, or if it was just he took a while to get acclimated to the Premier League and he was finally found his footing at the same time as Eriksen came in the side. Brighton's up next. They've played 2 games. Neil Maupay has 2 goals in those 2 games. 6.5 million, kind of with how many options there are in midfield and forward. I'm not really interested in that price point, but I did see something on Twitter saying there are transfer rumors surrounding him right now, which if he left, that would maybe open up some room for Dennis Undav at 5.5 million. He would be slightly more intriguing just because he's, well, another forward would be gone from that team, and he is £1 million cheaper for the game. But I think Brighton are kind of in that weird wait and see zone that I was mentioning with some of the newly promoted sides. I just gotta wait and see on that one. Lewis Dunk in defense at 4.5 million. Brighton play United on the opening weekend, but then they avoid a top 6 team until game week 9. So he's kind of a nice enabler if you don't mind having a little bit of money on your bench to start the year. I know a lot of people just want to put all of their money available into the starting 11, but it leaves you with some flexibility there. He's maybe not as exciting as Tomiyasu from Arsenal, but he could just be a nice differential that you don't really have to worry about too much, and you can just avoid him for that first game week, and then if you need it, he will have some good fixtures as he avoids the top 6, like I said. Chelsea, our next team in the alphabet, they've only played 1 game so far, 2-1 win over Club America. They play Charlotte FC tonight. Timo Werner and Mason Mount were on the score sheet there. They've had Raheem Sterling come in, Kalidou Koulibaly come in as well. They're also rumored to have, totally blanking on the name, but they have another transfer for their defense possibly coming in as well, which would shore up the back, and hopefully that would convince Thomas Tuchel to keep the 2 wingbacks, because Ben Chilwell and Reece James at 6 million is incredibly tempting at the back, and even Mendy at 5 million is a very popular keeper in the game right now. The double up is popular, so 2 of those 3, I think a lot of people are going with Chilwell and James. I see Chelsea as a partnership in defense right now with Liverpool. So I think there's 2 pairings. If you're only going to get 1 from each, I think you either have to go with Andy Robertson and Reece James or Chilwell and Trent. I think that just protects you from the ownership game, because Trent and James are both so heavily owned on squads right now, and Chilwell and Robbo are the differential. So I don't think you can go with Robbo and Chilwell in one squad, and I'm not sure how if you're looking to make waves early, I'm not sure how you can get away with doing James and Trent. That's really template. Maybe you just want to play it safe there and choose your differentials in a different spot. That's probably okay. But I would definitely avoid going with Robbo and Chilwell just because you might get buried if their teammates have a massive game. I prefer Robbo and James right now because it is cheaper. You save 0.5 on Trent there if you go with Robertson, and that can get you up from a 4.5 million keeper to the Mendy. Then you can still get that Chelsea double up if you want. After Chelsea comes another London team here in Crystal Palace. They have played 5 games so far. They lost to Liverpool and United when they played them. Edouard has 2 assists so far. He's another cheap forward option. But like I was kind of saying earlier, I'm pretty happy to go with my third forward as like my dead bench fodder spot and just invest more money in my starting 11. Crystal Palace has the toughest first 6 game weeks according to Fantasy Football Scout fixture ticker. So that means they might be one of those popular teams on the wild card. If you're gonna plan to use your wild card in games 6, 7, or 8 range, then you can start to come back to the Crystal Palace assets here. Wilfried Zaha, 7 million. He's got 2 goals and 2 assists so far this preseason. A team that barely survived the drop last year, Everton, is here. They've only played 1 game so far. Their second game is versus Minnesota United in the USA later today. Not a ton of interesting assets at the moment. One I am looking at, though, is Anthony Gordon at 5.5 with Richarlison off to Tottenham. There's not a lot of attacking options going on there. They still got Dominic Calvert-Lewin, but he's at 8 million. So if Gordon becomes that kind of talismanic, heliocentric player that I was talking about earlier with Solanke, and he's like the driving force behind Everton, there's not going to be a ton of other options. He's same price as Pedro Neto, who is very popular and scored last night for Wolves. So if you're trying to avoid the EO game or not get buried by it, you might just want to go with Neto. I don't have a great feeling about Everton this year. I don't have a great feeling about Frank Lampard as a manager, unfortunately. So they are also in the wait and see basket, along with this next team, Fulham. They've played 2 games. Last game they were thrashed 5-1 by Benfica. Not a great showing, but Mitrovic at 6.5 million was on the score sheet. He was assisted by new signing Andreas Pereira from Man United. So that's like the 2 most popular options for Fulham linking up there. In Fulham's opening game, they won 2-0 against Nice, but Mitrovic wasn't on the field when they had 2 penalties, so he should still be the go-to guy when they get a chance from the spot. I mentioned earlier the FPL Wire podcast with Luke when he was guesting on there. He mentioned that if Fulham play in the Premiership like they played in the Championship last year, Mitrovic can still thrive. He's so important to that team with the goals and the assists. I think he said it was over 50% he was involved in, so he didn't even rule out a 25-goal season. Unfortunately, Fulham play Liverpool, Arsenal, Tottenham in the first 6 game weeks, and they could be another one of those wild card teams in 6, 7, or 8 that we look towards when we activate that chip. I do have Andreas Pereira in my draft right now, just 4.5 million, the cheapest midfielder you can get, and it looks like he's going to be playing the number 10 role, so he's going to be in a lot of teams. You can kind of get away with playing him here and there when Fulham have favorable fixtures. Leeds is another team that, kind of like Everton, not really feeling a ton of their players right now. They've played 3 games. Daniel James at 6 million has a goal and an assist through those 3 games, but he's going to miss game week 1 due to suspension, so nothing you can do there. They don't really have bad fixtures. They just don't have anyone that is exciting. For in their first 6, they have 4 easy games, but 3 of those 4 are on the road. So they play Everton at home, and then they play Southampton, Brighton, Brentford on the road. So depending on how you think about those road fixtures with Brighton and Brentford, like those have pretty good crowds. It could be a little tougher than it looks on paper. The other 2 games are Wolves and Chelsea at home, so maybe they can sneak a point out of one of those 2 games. But for now, Leeds with Jesse Marsch having a whole preseason and bringing in some American signings and just kind of dealing with the loss of Rafinha. It's going to be an interesting, once again, a kind of a wait and see. Like, this is my whole thing, like going with good players from good teams and kind of waiting to see where I can find value in like the second, third, fourth game week as the season moves along. Leicester is a very interesting team. They've played 3 games. They beat Hull City for zip last night. So far in the preseason, Daka has 2 goals and an assist. James Maddison has a goal and 2 assists. Harvey Barnes has 2 goals. Dewsbury Hall has a goal and assist, and Vardy has a goal. My big thing this year is Brendan Rodgers has already come out and said that when you don't play in Europe, it's like a holiday because you're just preparing for 1 game a week. And that's what Leicester will be doing. They had the Europa League Conference Cup or something along those lines all the way up to the semifinals against Roma last season. And it was very troublesome in FPL circles because we always had to wonder, okay, like they just played on Thursday, they play Sunday, like is Maddison going to start? Is Barnes going to start? Is Vardy going to even play 30 minutes? But without that European fixture now, it feels like they can get away with just settling on a strong, like starting 11 kind of thing. And that's why James Maddison is one of the most polarizing players in my FPL draft makeup right now. I really want to get in on him because he was incredible at the end of last year. So there's 6 midfielders this year that are starting at £8 million. James Maddison, Mason Mount, Luis Diaz, Phil Foden, Bukayo Saka, and Dejan Kulusevski. In the last 6 game weeks of the 2021-2022 season, this is their non-penalty expected goal involvement. Maddison 3.5, Mount 3.3, Diaz 3, Foden 2.5, Saka 2.2, and Kulusevski at 1.9. When you change that to a per 90 rate, only Diaz beats Maddison in a expected goal involvement per 90 as well. The problem for Leicester is they have a mixed bag of fixtures. They've got Brenton, Southampton, and United at home, but they have Arsenal, Chelsea, and Brighton away. I think Maddison is good enough of a player that he can just battle through those. He's definitely capable of a haul. Like at the end of last year, there was a couple of games where it was an assist and a goal, a couple of goals. So Maddison might be the one differential I go with in the midfield as I try to like stick to the template, but also try to find certain cracks where I can differentiate myself from the field. I think he's currently less than 6% on he's on less than 6% of squads. Let me just check here. 1 second. I still have Rashford in my draft, so that's interesting. He is coming in right now at 5.9% of squads. So he would definitely be a differential if you are looking to go that route. Next up is the second place team from last year, Liverpool. They've played 2 games so far. Their 3rd game is tonight versus RB Leipzig. Like I discussed with the Chelsea debate, Trent versus Robbo is a very widely debated topic right now on FPL Twitter. I have decided to nullify this argument right now and go with both of them in my squad at the back with the Liverpool double up and go with Salah as my 3rd Liverpool player. So essentially I'm choosing Robbo over Diaz. He saves you $1 million. Diaz seems a little bit more subjected to rotation with Darwin Nunez, Diego Jota, and then even some of the youngsters trying to get a game as they rise up through the ranks. So if Diaz comes in and just like crushes, just takes the Mane role, shows us that he can play 90 minutes game in, game out, he is going to destroy that £8 million price tag. So this might become after the Community Shield versus Man City debate. If he plays in that lineup, if he starts, which I think he should, it's going to be extremely tempting to go back to him, especially if Man City, who seem to have only strengthened their squad despite a couple of losses with Sterling, but they brought in Haaland. Like if Liverpool lost 2-0 and it was like, oh no, like look, Liverpool aren't going to get clean sheets. I could see a lot of people going from Robertson up to Diaz, especially if he looks as electric as he did during the second half of the year. They've got great fixtures to start the year. The easiest starting 6 games, so you can't really go wrong. I feel like the Liverpool triple up is essential. So if you can get those 3 guys in, or 3 of those 4 guys in, you're going to be in a good spot. Next up is the champions. As much as that pains me to say, Man City. Their first game is tonight versus Club America. They don't have a lot of preseason games this year. They're only playing 2. The shiny new toy that everyone is so excited to see is Erling Haaland. Got to see him on the pitch tonight. That'll be great. It can't tell if this is like just being on social media too much or something, but I feel like every day I see a joke or just a internet troll talking about how there's an injury for Haaland and like run for the hills, but he still feels like a must with the opening fixtures that Man City have been given. It's interesting in FPL this year because it feels like the top 6 teams all have great fixtures, including Man United in that they have a couple of toughies, but nothing too bad there. And so Man City, Liverpool, Arsenal, they all have like really good games to start the year. So it feels really important to load up on those teams and not try to get too cute, which is what I might be doing here with João Cancelo. For some reason, he feels like the least exciting pick of the premium defenders for me, and I keep finding myself building a draft, just kind of plugging him in there because he was so good last year, and then I'll be like about to finalize the draft. I'm like, well, what if I just take Cancelo down to Perisic or to Reece James, and I get that savings and like move it and make myself like an £8 million midfielder instead. Is Ederson or Diaz or Laporte enough to get that City cover in defense? I'm not sure. Cancelo could definitely make me look stupid immediately, but I think I'm going to go without him right now. I think the Trent Robertson double up, even if Liverpool might become a little bit more leaky this year, I think those 2 are just so important to what Liverpool do as a club that I'll take the 1 or 2 extra goals conceded versus their attacking return potential, because it felt like Cancelo was mostly like a effective ownership guy last year. Like it felt scary to have to go without him when I played my wild card for like the last 10 game weeks of the season, but he didn't really punish everyone that badly. Like he's a bonus points machine, but he picks up a yellow card, Man City letting a goal. Like it's very, very tough. He had a couple of great games in the first half, and I think that maybe carried him over a little bit. I know he had a lot of shots, some expected goals just didn't go his way kind of thing, but you never know. Like he wasn't a lock at the start of last year. That's why he was coming in at 6 million or 6.5 million, and people start to jump on him eventually. But Pep can just change his mind like that. Who knows? Kyle Walker with Cucurella for Brighton possibly coming over. We could be in for a classic Pep roulette. Moving over from Man City to Man United, they've played 3 games and they have incredibly tempting budget option. Jadon Sancho looks really good under Ten Hag. He's got 2 goals in the preseason. He's 7.5 million. Marcus Rashford is 6.5 million. He is starting to become part of the template. I think he has the potential to just be this season's biggest riser. He went from 9.5 million last year in the game to 6.5, and if he scores a couple of goals, I think everyone's going to get him in the team instantly. That price is going to shoot up, and those of us with him in the team will build some early season team value, which I don't mind at all. Anthony Martial is also there at 7 million as a forward. He's got 3 goals and 1 assist. And another potential pivot to Gabriel Jesus. Jesus is going to be very popular. He's obviously scoring all the time, but maybe if he ends the preseason a little bit more on the quiet note compared to how he started it, we could see more and more teams start to go with the Watkins, the Tonys. If Martial keeps this up, people are going to be incredibly tempted to get more Man United assets in their team. I'm not going anywhere near their defense right now. That's definitely that part of their team is right in with the very overcrowded wait and see bucket. But their attackers are incredibly they're very interesting to get in your FPL squad. They play Liverpool at home in game week 3, but they start with Brighton and Brentford. Like I said, Rashford is the main man in my thoughts right now, as he could just explode with new leadership and some new belief in his role for the team. Newcastle going across the country, 3 games so far. Bruno Guimaraes is also a popular pick in FPL teams right now. He's at £6 million. He's got a goal and an assist. But they have Man City and Liverpool in their first 5 game weeks. That's pretty off-putting despite the attractive Nottingham Forest at home game to open the year. I think a pitfall of the game is you go in to the app or online and you just see Kieran Trippier, Nottingham Forest, home. Bruno Guimaraes, Nottingham Forest, home. Callum Wilson, Nottingham Forest, home. And it's wow, that's such a great fixture. How do I not get those guys on my team? Well, the next 5 game weeks are going to be pretty tough. So I think they will be another team in the fixture swing bucket. I'm just got baskets and buckets all over the place here, filling them up. But Trippier was really good when he came to Newcastle last year, but he missed about 10 weeks with a broken foot. But he was on set pieces. Newcastle were bagging clean sheets. So he's 5 million, and he would be after that Aston Villa run of games, when Aston Villa played Bournemouth, Everton, and Crystal Palace in game weeks 1 through 3. Wouldn't mind looking at Matty Cash or Luca Dean over to Kieran Trippier. Going to the last of the promoted teams right here, we've got Nottingham Forest. They've played 3 games so far. Last night they came through and Leon Taylor scored 2 goals versus Hertha Berlin as they won. I think it was 3-1 or 3-0. He's another good bench player, cheap forward option. Could he get playing time? Possibly. We'll see how they continue to line up during the preseason. But 2 goals last night versus a competitive team is always good news. Along with Nico Williams, he's over from Liverpool, another minimum priced guy, but it seems like he's already won the wingback role for Forest there. He's going to get a ton of starts. You're probably never going to want to play him, but he could help out in the odd situation here and there. Forest can obviously succeed in the Premier League because they beat Arsenal and Leicester in the FA Cup last year. They barely lost to Liverpool in the quarterfinals. But since I am going with the good players from good team strategy right now, Forest are going in the wait and see basket. Whew. 4 teams to go here. Southampton, 2 games. Adam Armstrong took a penalty with James Ward-Prowse off the field, and he missed it. So, not great, Bob. Not a lot to say about Southampton. They ended the season so poorly last year that I think it's really just taken the shine off of anyone we could potentially want. But on the Athletic Fantasy Premier League podcast, FPL General said, if you go for James Ward-Prowse, 6.5 million again, it's a set and forget. He will get you the points, but don't try to swap him in and out. So don't try and catch him on a heater or swap him out when he's been bad. It's just put him in there. He's going to get his points. It'll be ups and downs, but if you just leave him in there, he'll do the job. But he's just not like, I think in like fantasy football all the time, we talk about Keenan Allen or Miles Sanders, or who used to be another one, like Kenny Golladay, I guess. Like those aren't the, ooh, like you sniped my sleeper picks. It's just kind of like why would you draft that guy? He's really boring. But they will help you win on a week-to-week basis, and that's kind of where James Ward-Prowse falls in for Southampton. Everything else is just not that interesting, unfortunately, because they have Tottenham, Leicester, United, Chelsea, and Wolves on their schedule in the first 6 game weeks. Tottenham's up next, and they should be a very popular team, but their price points are just so difficult that it feels like the bold manager, the brave manager who goes with the Son Kane double up over a Salah Haaland kind of combo there could run away with the title for FPL in like the first 4 or 5 game weeks, or he could just be buried to a finish over 1 million in the game. So through 2 games so far, Son has 2 goals and an assist. Kane has 2 goals and an assist. The community, the Twitterverse is off Spurs except Perisic, but now Perisic hasn't played in the preseason. He's apparently going to play 30 to 45 minutes against Roma in their next friendly. I think it was Roma. They have a ton of options, but it's scary to go against the template, especially with players like Haaland, like Salah, that could just blow the doors off their hinges, with Salah playing Fulham in game week 1, Haaland playing Bournemouth in game week 2. If you don't have those guys, that is pretty terrifying. Kane versus Haaland is the most interesting debate for me. Son versus Salah would be more interesting if Son was like 11 million, but with him just being only £1 million less than Salah, I think you just go with Salah. He's going to score you 200 points, 250 points, like probably be the top scorer in the game once again. But Kane is a template breaker versus Haaland, who's over 60% rostered in FPL teams. Kulusevski, Richarlison, I think one of those guys needs to get injured for it either to be must-haves in the game, because Kulusevski comes in at 8 million and Richarlison was great at Everton, but he will not be the only option there. He was I've said this like 4 or 5 times now, but he was the talisman at Everton. He was one of the reasons they stayed up last year. But that doesn't need to be the case at Tottenham, as they have Son Heung-min, Harry Kane, Kulusevski. They've got all the wing backs too. Matt Doherty could offer a route to Spurs points in the defense, but they keep signing defenders left and right, so I'm really not sure what they are going to line up with to begin the year. Another London team here, West Ham. They've played 5 games already, so they've already played more games than Man City is going to play the entire preseason. 2 wins, 2 draws, and 1 thumping north of the border to Rangers, 3-1 the other night. Jared Bowen had a phenomenal 2021-2022 season, but he's been bumped up 2 million to 8.5. And if he was at 8 million, I think that would just be incredible, because with the debate between Foden, Saka, Diaz, Mount, all those guys, putting Bowen at 8.5 just like feels How I can't. I'm trying to find an extra 0.5 to get him there, but is he really gonna outscore all 6 of those other £8 million guys on a week-to-week basis? It's tough to say because, especially with the way the season starts, as West Ham have Man City, Tottenham, and Chelsea sandwiched between, around Nottingham Forest, Brighton, and Villa. So it's a very up and down schedule for the first 6 game weeks for West Ham. And I think Bowen is maybe a wait and see. I mean, maybe his price even goes down a little bit. Who knows? Final team here is Wolves. 3 games so far. They played their 3rd game last night against Alaves, and they won 4-0. And Pedro Neto had Twitter on fire. He won the penalty to claim a FPL assist by getting fouled in the box there. And then he also scored a goal. So 5.5 million. That's what I was talking about with Anthony Gordon earlier, who's also 5.5 million. Like, Neto is getting up there. He's already at 20%. I guess 20% of teams really isn't that bad. I mean, if you scroll through FPL Twitter, you thought he would be like 80% because everyone loves him. But maybe his star will fade as the preseason goes along, as people get a little bit more bored just saying the same thing over and over again, like on podcasts or YouTube videos. So I think we can talk ourselves in circles. So I'll try to remember this before the game week 1 lock and make sure to at least double check Neto, and I haven't just completely gone off him. They've got some options in defense, but it depends. Are they still going to go with the 3 center backs? It'll be interesting. They've got some signings rumored, so it's kind of a Wolves defense is in the wait and see. They've got Jose Sa at 5 million as a goalkeeper. And if you're going to go with a 5 million goalkeeper, I don't think you can go with Sa right now. I think on Let's Talk FPL's latest YouTube video, they were saying Wolves conceded 36 goals, but their expected goals conceded was like 9 more than that, and it just seems like the numbers don't add up, and like Jose Sa will have some regression to the mean there. But as a saving grace, Wolves do have the 3rd easiest schedule to begin the year. They avoid every top 6 club, and they get to play Bournemouth and Forest at home. So Wolves could be starting flying high after 6 weeks to the Premier League season. Whew. So that was all 20 teams. Let's just look at my draft here real quick. So right now I've got Raya in goal with Balcom as the backup for Brentford here. Then at the back I've got Andy Robertson, Trent Alexander-Arnold, Reece James, Matty Cash, and Tomiyasu. That could easily go to Perisic and Nico Williams instead of Cash and Tomiyasu, or just go down from Tomiyasu to Nico Williams and have 0.5 in the bank. That will probably be a last minute decision there. See how Arsenal continue to look in the preseason. In the midfield right now, I've got Mo Salah, Bukayo Saka, Marcus Rashford, Pedro Neto, and Andreas Pereira. That's pretty template, I think. I mean, maybe not Saka. He's only 16.7% of teams, and Rashford is getting up there. He's at 12.7, with Salah being at 57.9. And then up front, I'm very boring with Erling Haaland and Gabriel Jesus, the 2 most popular forwards in the game by how much? Wow, yes, Haaland is 61.2, Jesus is 60.5, and then 4.5, Greenwood is 27.7, with Harry Kane at 19.5. Whew, man. So there's still 2 weeks to go before the first game of the season, as Crystal Palace welcome Arsenal. I think I'll probably wait another 2 weeks, so I'll do another FPL podcast right before the season starts as a game week 1 season long mega preview. and then we will be into the thick of it, and I'll be doing game week previews every week for most of the season. Got to go on vacation sometime, so there will be a couple of game weeks missed here and there. But as always, thanks for listening. You can follow me on Twitter at @UInOrYouOut. You can listen to the podcast on Spotify, Apple, Google. You just type in Backup Fantasy Sports, and somehow it's the only podcast called that on the interwebs. It'll also go on YouTube as just an audio recording as well. But yeah, once again, thanks for listening, and I will talk to you next time.